guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Apex podcast presented by RockShox. My name's John Croom, and I'm sitting here with Win Van Pelt. Win, where are you located out of, man? Where are you based out of? And I see you're in an office there. So what are you up to these days?
Yeah, I'm a real estate agent. Been doing that for about 30 years over in the Seattle, Washington area.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and so and so yeah, man. How did you? I guess more or less like I your story came across my desk, and I had to get you on the podcast because you raced the 60 plus Masters men category all the
yes,
way out of Washington. But that's not all you've been doing. I mean, you've been mountaineering, rock climbing, ice climbing. I guess let's
yes.
start with who is Win and how does Win become this athlete? Like I mean, I can easily look at you and go, okay, cool. He's a guy who works in a day job, but I mean, you've been doing like the TransAlps and all kinds of crazy stuff. So let's dive into where you get started in adventure sports or just in sports in general.
Yeah, it's about the time my kids were in high school, and I just told my wife I want to get back to racing and running again, and was getting ready for my first marathon
Yeah,
in my mid 40s, and my knees and everything they hurt running on the pavement, so I started running on trails,
I get you.
and then met up with some guys doing trail running back around 2002, and then got into ultra
Yeah.
marathons, running, 25, 50Ks and stuff like that.
So
Uh,
what are some of those 25 and 50K events that you've actually completed in?
we did White River, which was USA Championship. I have two silvers and a bronze
Oh wow.
out from that. So that it was a lot of fun hanging out with the guys and gals and just, exploring adventures. And I really enjoyed it because I liked pushing my body, see what the limits were.
Yeah. No, cuz yeah, what does the training even look like for I mean, I'm a I'm like an ultra endurance bike racer and track cyclist, but
Oh, cool.
when it comes to doing running, I mean, anything over 5K for me is an ultra endurance event. So like how do you with a day job and kids and life and family train for a 50-mile running race, even up to a 100-mile running race?
Well, I have a very patient wife.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good place to start, man.
Yeah, but yeah, so usually with that kind of training, it's a speed workout on a Wednesday and then longer runs on the weekends, running, 20, 24 miles through the mountains.
Yeah.
And we just had fun. I ended up helping be one of the founders of Seattle Running Club in the Seattle area here. And we just had some great athletes that I'm sure many of you have had heard of on our team when we got started. Um, and just enjoy exploring. We'd have fun linking up trails in the mountains
Yeah.
and just making cool things happen. I mean, seeing turquoise lakes, granite mountains,
Yeah.
and large trees turning orange. I mean, how can you beat that kind of scenery?
No, for sure. And so that's awesome, man. And so like with the ultra running stuff, like how does that find you into cycling? Like it said, after reading your story, it says that, this is your first that was your first mountain biking event. So where does the, you putting up the running shoes and going, "Hey, I'm going to go buy a mountain bike?" Cuz I mean, it's always the running joke with our friends with it's like, why would you go buy a bike when you can just buy a pair of running shoes?
That's good, John.
You can spend $10,000 on a bike when you could just go buy a pair of running shoes. So what made you want to make that switch when you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go buy a bike and try to get this this mountain bike racing?
Well, mixed in with the ultra running, I did Ironman.
Okay,
So I had a little bit of a cycling background there.
okay,
Um, and so unfortunately, my meniscus wore out from running.
okay,
So I still wanted to be on the trails. And so my friend introduced me to mountain bike riding, and I just got hooked on it. So, and being the competitive athlete that I like to be, I just decided to start racing some short cross country races. And I thought, well, this is kind of like the next step. Let's see what happens if you race for 4 days.
yeah, in
So
Colorado, nonetheless, right?
I know
Yeah.
Colorado's an amazing place.
Yeah, and so what was that experience like? I guess, making the transition, was it a big change or was it just like, oh, I'm on a different vehicle? Like I moved from my feet to a pedaled apparatus, Like what was the change, I guess, more or less for ultra running into cycling?
John, it's really a huge change. Just the being technical on those trails and everything with the bike, that was big. I mean, it took a while to get used to, and I'm still learning and growing, how to navigate all the obstacles,
Yeah.
roots and rocks, and you know, just trying to make it around a sharp turn, on a mountain bike is totally different
Yeah, it's a little different.
than running on tennis shoes.
Yeah, but it's probably a little easier on the body after a while, right?
Oh, it's a lot easier. My knees don't hurt at all. I love it. So,
Yeah.
and quite frankly, we just came off a 3-week vacation, and so I was a little undertrained for the race. Bless you.
No, for sure. And so I guess my question for you is when you got into the cycling and got into looking for these events, like how did you find the Apex and how are you like, oh, the Apex, that's a good event for me. Like that's the one that I want to do.
Well, the videos made it look, the scenery is beautiful, it looked challenging.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm, those things were of interest to me. I thought, well, this would be a great place to go on vacation. My wife could go hang out at the Garden of the Gods. I can go race.
Yeah.
And so uh, that the challenge was the thing that this seemed like the next step, a 4-day stage race.
For sure. And so are we expecting to see you in 2022 or have you made plans
Well,
yet?
I am going to be leaving for Europe this week for a
Okay.
TransAlps 7-day stage race.
Okay.
Um, I want to see how I survive that first.
Yeah. And so what made you sign up for that? Yeah, because I see that in here in my notes that you signed up for the TransAlps and give us a little bit of a background on what the TransAlps is for some athletes that may not know.
Right. TransAlps is a 7-day stage race. It's 500K, basically
Yeah.
350 miles over 18 meters of vert, which is about 36,000 feet. So I equate that to when I climb Mount Rainier, it's like climbing Mount Rainier every day for 7 days.
Wow.
So I figured I did some fast packing in the Dolomites, and I thought, what a great
What's
opportunity to.
pause for a second. What's fast packing?
Oh, they have what is called Altavias, their routes through the
Yeah.
Dolomites. And so I had a couple of buddies and we went through and did a couple of those routes. Did what is called Via Ferrata, it's rock climbing without ropes,
Yeah.
use cables. And it's just the scenery is gorgeous there. And I thought, wow, this would be a great way to do it on a mountain bike with a group of about 1,000 other athletes from 40 countries.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So
So,
I've been training hard, hired my triathlon coach back this year.
okay.
I've realized with mountain biking, I need a little help with getting my training dialed in.
Okay. Yeah, and so what is your training? I mean, look, I'm 28 years old. And I felt like I've experienced a ton. And then when I see your name pop up and it's 60 plus and it's like, yeah, he's hiked Mount Rainier 5 different times, fast packed the Dolomites and in the Himalayas. It's like, Jesus Christ, like man, this guy's all over the place. Like and still up and jumping. Like I'm 28 and like I struggle to get out of bed sometimes when I do some of these efforts. And so how are you finding, I guess more or less the energy to go do these things and like because I'm not assuming that your peers like I mean I guess I am assuming that some of your peers are doing these events with you, but I mean I could see you at a dinner party when you're trying to explain, oh yeah, I leave for Europe next week, and they're like, oh, what business trip is this? And it's like, no, I'm going to do the TransAlps, and they're just like, what? And so what how are those conversations going?
Well, I think they get pretty excited.
Yeah.
They want to see the pictures.
Yeah.
So I'll try to figure out how to take pictures while I'm riding.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And so like I guess my thing is like how do you find the time and the adequate training of just working, um, traveling, as well as, getting adequate training and then balancing the recovery?
Yeah, that's a great question there. So I get up at 5 in the morning. So I train
Okay.
a couple hours before work during the week.
Yeah.
And then the weekends, I'm still getting up at 5 or 5:30 and going out for a 4 to 5.5 hour mountain bike ride training in the mountains.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I have some great friends that sometimes join with me on those
Yeah.
training. So uh, and that's how I relax actually.
Yeah.
Real estate is pretty stressful,
Yeah.
and for me, just to be able to be fully engaged in something like mountain biking is very relaxing to me. I mean, it's taxing, but it's relaxing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's tiring at times. Sometimes, I get up in the morning, I go for my ride, and it takes me a little while for the body to warm up and to kick into gear because it's just
Yeah.
exhausted from the day before.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun to see gorgeous scenery and the Cascade Mountains, faster than running on a mountain bike. I mean,
Yeah.
what's more fun than, just zooming down a mountain on a mountain bike, you know,
Yeah. And I mean,
pulling.
doing all these crazy experiences, you have to have some crazy stories because like I was telling, somebody, one of my athletes the other day, it's like when you do some of these ultra endurance events, you kind of go through phases. Like
Yes.
you go through these like highs and these lows, and I'm talking about real high and real low. Like you'll
Yeah,
be really excited, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't think I can do this. And
right.
so is there any moment where you're like, "Oh man, I don't know if I can finish this event." Like have you ever gone through those and you're just like, "Oh, I'm just going to try to make it to the next aid station," or anything that you can kind of remember? Like there's a few that I can kind of remember, like one that's really sticks out to me is Mid-South when it was
Mm.
just mud. I was literally going aid station to aid station to aid station. It's the longest 100 miles I ever did on a bike. But yeah, is there anything like even with running, is there anything that's ever stuck out to you? You're just like, "Oh man, I don't know if I can complete today."
Well, yeah, but I first was into ultra running. I didn't know how to drink and eat right, so I go into delirium for about an hour or two,
Jeez.
where it's just like, you're really dizzy and just kind of wandering up the trail, and then finally get some food and water nutrition. Then the body just somehow overcomes it and just kicks back in,
Yeah.
and you just get rolling again. But there's times where, yeah, you just try to focus on this, the next tree,
The
it's the
next
next
tree.
hill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just keep focused on the person in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just small little goals to get to the end there. And yeah, I mean, I was on training yesterday and I was exhausted from the day before.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just tell myself, it's one more pedal stroke. It's one more pedal stroke. I can get up to the top of this hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty satisfying to be able to push your body, to its limits.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And then
so
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, and I don't know if you're like me, John, but I feel like taking a nap sometimes after these big workouts.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely am that guy. Remember, please refer back to earlier in the podcast when I said it's a struggle for me to even get out of get out of the bed. And so like yeah, for me, I think it's just really interesting to hear, you know, your age and then kind of what you've experienced, I guess, more or less just in the races and the events alone. I mean, it sounds like you've been to like at least 3 to 4 or 5 different countries to do events.
Yes.
And then on top of that, they're not just a one-day event. Like it's a multi-day experience and adventure, and yeah, like I think that's just really interesting and wild to me. And so what is your like do you have so you made a comment about nutrition because I think this is very key. We've had this in the podcast with the Apex because it is a 3 to 4 day long event, and people are talking about eating. um do you have a nutrition plan, or like do you have a set like steady breakfast that you eat every morning, or like is there a post race meal that you eat every single time? Like how are you making sure that you're staying on top of the calories to perform the best the next day?
Yeah. That's a great question. So in the evening, it's always just we found a great Italian restaurant in
Yeah.
Colorado Springs,
Okay.
and I actually told my wife was getting kind of tired, but I said, "Well, we need to go back again tonight
Right on.
because I need to have a lot of bread, a lot of
Yeah.
pasta, a
Yeah.
lot of olive oil, just
Yeah.
to refuel and get ready for the next day."
Yeah.
So I usually I try to eat in the morning 3 hours before the race
Okay.
to allow the food to digest, because
Yeah.
otherwise all the blood goes to the stomach.
Yeah.
And so that's really, really critical. And then always take like a goo or something about 20 minutes before.
Yeah.
just to kind of get that nutrition in there before the race starts.
A little quick sugar.
And
Yep.
I really struggled at Apex with nutrition because I'm used to being able to, when I'm running, just to eat and drink constantly. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're on a mountain bike,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're still
different.
learning how to handle the bike and drink, especially
Yeah.
like on the certain sections. Like if you're climbing and if it's too steep, then it's hard to eat, and if you're descending, if it's too technical, it's hard to eat. And so it's like trying to find that happy balance of where to take in fuel for sure.
And I have to say, Apex was a challenging race, especially when you're really tired. You have some fairly narrow technical trails with some steep side parts.
Oh yeah,
I remember the first day I went to do the stage race just to kind of preview the course the day before.
yeah,
And I thought, oh my gosh, this is really technical.
yeah,
But it's funny, once you get in the race and you get in the flow, somehow the technical becomes so much easier
yeah.
because you just dialed in and zeroed, on what's happening. So
So
that's
how much different? Because you traveled all the way from Washington, and like we're two different climates, man. So how much different was the trail setup for you? Um, for you coming all the way here, because we have this thing. I mean, you probably will know how I'm referring to it now. It's the kitty litter. Um,
yeah.
yeah. How is it? How was it coming over and learning how to ride Colorado Springs trails? Did you have to make a lot of adjustments on how you rode the bike, or how did you
Well,
go about that?
that's a great question, John. I'm very familiar with kitty litter and rock climbing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I'm not familiar with kitty litter with mountain biking.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you go from loamy trails to this kitty litter, and oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's like it's all of a sudden these like little pebbles and just like of litter in the turns, and you can't really tell if it is there or not because it
Yeah.
all just kind of blends in. And so you're we were talking about it in the previous podcast of never hit your front brake, never ever hit your front brake, because at least you have a little bit of a weight on that rear
Yes.
um to kind of make maneuvers. But yeah, did you have to make any adjustments, you think?
Oh, I did. It was definitely a learning curve. I think the first
Yeah.
couple of days I was a little bit slower, just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, trying to
But
figure out how to press it and those kinds of things.
yeah, so you have a lot more rock and kitty litter, and we just have lots of mud.
Sweet. So what was your favorite stage, I guess, coming into or going out of the Apex, and all said and done, what was your favorite stage?
My favorite stage was probably the most challenging one. I can't remember what stage it is, where I actually carried my bike quite a bit.
Yeah.
Was that the second stage?
The one that you carried your bike quite a bit, was it
Well,
what did it
well,
look like?
it had so much variety. We had the long climbs,
Uh-huh.
and had some nice steep technical, and then there's some areas where it's just, I mean, it was hiking, right?
Yeah, it might have been, you talking about Monument possibly? It's outside of Colorado Springs?
Maybe it was Monument. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, that's
So
been the staple stage, favorite stage it seems to be with all these all the podcast guests. Everybody's loved that stage. So the Monument stage, yeah, that's a good one. Kind of goes around like a little pondish area, does Mount Herman and things like
yeah.
that. Yeah, no, that's cool. Um, but yeah, so I guess what's the rest of in store for Win after the TransAlps? Like, what's next for you? Do you have anything else planned or anything on the list or on the docket, or are you just taking it one event at a time?
I take it one at a time. I'm possibly thinking my coach is going to race Portugal
Okay.
next year, so I'm contemplating Portugal.
Okay.
So the race goes along the coast. Would like to come back to Apex,
Yeah.
see how far I can push my wife as far as, you
The
know,
events you can do.
if yeah, events I can do in the tense long training.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a conversation we'll need to have.
So Win, tell us a little bit about some of these adventure stories that you have. Like, I mean, I know you have a whole bucket list of stories and adventures lined up. Tell us a little bit some of these adventures that you have lined up.
Well, I'll start with mountaineering.
Okay.
So we were climbing Mount Baker with my father-in-law,
Yeah.
and the winds were just howling at night. We were in a tent with a little bit of a vestibule on the side,
Yeah.
and the winds were so strong. We woke up the morning, and my father-in-law said to each other, "I think we're moving. I think we're at base camp here on the ice." And all of a sudden, the wind was so strong it picked us up in our tent, and we were a hovercraft going over the glacier.
Oh wow. Jeez.
And so my brilliant engineer father-in-law said, well, let's open the zippers so the air goes through our tent and then we'll land.
Oh
That was
man. So
absolutely
you're
insane.
so you're literally flying.
Literally
So
flying in a tent.
yeah, what's that, like, 300 to 400 pounds of men,
Yeah,
just flying through the air. The winds were so strong. So yeah,
yeah.
no, that's wild. And so where was this at?
I was on Mount Baker in Washington.
Okay.
Yeah, we were at base camp up on a glacier.
Yeah, no, that's wild. And so what other stories do you have that, of adventures, whether it's, mountain biking, running?
Another adventure was it was a half Ironman in Hawaii,
Yeah.
and the winds were gusting up to 40 miles an hour. They're so strong that the wind blew away half the buoys before we started the swim.
Yeah.
And a triathlon again is a swim and a bike and a run. So we get out of the swim, get on our bikes. We're waving back and forth with the wind coming off the coast there. I see something glancing on my left eye, and it's a street sign that flies right in front of me. I
Yeah.
passed. But one of my favorite parts was we're heading up to the turnaround at Hawaii, and coming back, tucked in a little bullet, was a bike rider just slicing through the wind. It was Lance Armstrong.
Oh wow.
He just was a bullet slicing through the wind. And then the pros behind him were just waving in the wind, but the way he could just tuck, it was absolutely amazing.
No, that's insane. Yeah.
And I'll never forget his quote at the end of the race at the awards ceremony. He says, when I saw the flags flying and the trees bent over, I knew it was going to be a great day.
Yeah, take advantage of the wind.
Take
No.
advantage because he knew how to ride it.
Yeah.
It was kind of an amazing experience to see an athlete like that just slice through the wind.
Win, if there's one tip that you could give anybody, somebody your age or just somebody that's thinking about coming and doing the Apex, what would that tip be?
Uh, I guess the biggest tip would be just make sure you get your training in.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Make
one.
sure you get your training in. Make sure you get some long days on the weekend. Also, just really stay on top of the hydration, nutrition. So even if you have slow, you have to stop, whatever, just stay on top of the hydration, nutrition. That's really critical because by day 4, I would have to say I was toast.
Yeah, it starts to catch up with you.
Starts to catch up with you if you're not. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Win, well, that's perfect, man. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. Guys, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the subscribe button to the podcast. But other than that, we will see you next time.